This video is for educational and infotainment purposes only. It is not intended to encourage or glorify the use of illegal drugs, violence, or criminal activity in any way. So we've all heard about fentanyl at this point. In fact, you probably know someone who has died from a fentanyl overdose. 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. For the average person, even a tiny amount can be fatal. Streaming into the U.S. from Mexico, drug cartels have found a brand new clientele where the profits are high, law enforcement is sparse, and the risk of significant prison time is very low. So where is this place? Well, you're about to find out. My name is Joshua Roberts, attorney at law, and you are watching Lawyer Up. In today's episode, we will be looking at the fentanyl crisis in a unique place where it is having a devastating effect and killing a specific population group in record numbers. Who is it? Native Americans. We will examine who is primarily responsible for trafficking it into the United States and exactly why they are targeting Indian reservations for delivery. But first, we have to pay the bills, and that is through today's video sponsor that's brought to you by Aura. So have you ever Googled yourself? Done a Google search of your own name. Some of the stuff that comes up is what you would expect. But then there's like all of these links, like 20 of them, that say that they have your phone number, your email, home address, work history, criminal history, health records, even information about relatives. It's all out there. And it's unnerving to think that these data brokers are out there selling information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out demands for me. First and foremost, Aura protects me from the hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, my banking accounts, and other online financial accounts. But there's other benefits as well. You get antivirus protection, you get virtual private network benefits, password management, parental controls if you've got littles, identity theft insurance, and more. And you can do it without having to download a bunch of different apps. It's easy to set up, and best of all, you get everything at one low price. It's one-stop shopping. Aura does it all. Total protection. Aura is always working, protecting you from online threats you can't see and keeping you safe, so you can focus on other tasks at hand. I value my privacy, I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Joshua Roberts and you get 2 weeks free. The link is in the description below. If you are familiar with the channel, then more than likely you have viewed my videos on the history of opium, the history of heroin, and the history of fentanyl. If not, you should check out those videos because they take a deep dive into those topics. For this video, we're just going to do a quick refresher on the drugs. Now, the discussion starts with opium, which is a naturally occurring alkaloid sourced from the seeds of the poppy plant. It's one of the most addictive substances on planet Earth. And that's because the human brain has opioid receptors, which make us feel really, really good when they are stimulated. These pods contain an opium sap, which consists of codeine, morphine, and thebaine. Codeine is used in prescription cough suppressants, morphine to treat pain after surgery or severe injury, and thebaine is the raw material that is processed further to make prescription painkillers like hydrocodone or OxyContin. Now, morphine has been around since the early 1800s. It was originally sold over the counter for pain relief, and while those people didn't fully appreciate the concept of opioid receptors in the brain, they did figure out pretty quickly that it was very addictive and caused serious withdrawal symptoms. So chemists tried to come up with something that was less addictive. The result was a substance they called heroin. Between 1900 and 1920, heroin was sold as the less addictive painkiller. And boy, were they wrong, because it is super addictive. And by 1930, it was declared illegal by almost all countries in the world. But the cat was out of the bag, and recreational heroin use was here to stay. Medicinal research continued, and of relevance was that in 1968, Paul Janssen of Janssen Pharmaceuticals developed an extremely potent painkiller formerly called fentanyl, but mostly referred to on the streets as fentanyl. It was introduced to the medical community primarily through the transdermal fentanyl patch, which is a patch that is applied to the skin that offers a slow, extended release for its users. Well, people figured out how to extract it through a process called diversion, and then they were able to ingest the drug that is roughly 100 times more potent than heroin. It's nasty stuff. It was never designed to be taken in a concentrated form. It's way too potent, and it will kill you if you don't have a significant tolerance for opioids. It's what heroin addicts graduate to. It's not a starting point. So for perspective, you've got codeine and its basic potency, then morphine, which is twice as strong as codeine. Then you bounce up to heroin, which is twice as strong as morphine, and then the granddaddy of them all is fentanyl. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. Wicked potent, and it's sold on the streets today mostly in pill form. So that's fentanyl. The next question is, who is trafficking this stuff? And the answer is Los Chapitos, or the Little Chapos, sons of the legendary drug trafficker El Chapo, who are currently in charge of his faction of the Sinaloa drug cartel. Specifically, Jesus, his brother Ivan, and Joaquin Jr. They currently share leadership roles in the Sinaloa Cartel and its fentanyl trafficking operations, including importing the fentanyl precursors from China into Mexico, producing the drug, and then the coordination of its trafficking into the United States. And of course, they're not the only cartel in play, but according to the DEA, the Sinaloa Cartel is the entity primarily responsible for the massive influx of fentanyl into the United States over the past several years, which is why the U.S. Department of State is offering a reward of up to $10 million for information leading to the arrest and/or conviction of any of the members of Los Chapitos. So that's who is pushing the fentanyl, and of course they will sell to any population group, but they are currently specifically targeting one segment of the population. Who is it? Well, to answer that question, let's look at a real-life illustration from a recent story on NBC featuring the Blackfeet Reservation in northern Montana. They had a stretch in 2022 where they had 17 fentanyl overdoses and 4 fatalities in a single week. Marvin Weatherwax Jr., a tribal leader there, stated, quote, "It's raining fentanyl and wiping out an entire generation of Native Americans," end quote. And the DEA confirms that the Sinaloa Cartel is targeting the Blackfeet and the state's 6 other reservations with a steady flow of drugs. The question is, why are Mexican drug cartels targeting reservations 1,000 miles north of the Mexican border? And the answer is simple: low risk and high reward. First, let's talk about profits. It costs between 4 cents and 25 cents to manufacture a single fentanyl pill in Mexico. Just across the border, say in San Diego, a pill will sell for roughly $1. Here in Southwest Missouri, they're going for $10 to $20 a pill. But if you go 1,000 miles north, pills are selling for upwards of $100 on some reservations. If you can make something for $0.25 and you can sell it for $100, That's an unbelievable profit, and you're going to do it as many times as you can. The second reason drug cartels are targeting Indian reservations are that they lack significant law enforcement. Get this, in the entire state of Montana, they have less than 20 DEA agents, and it's a huge region. And then when you get onto the Indian reservation itself, there's even less law enforcement. On the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, they have only 7 police officers assigned to the entire reservation. The reservation is about 693 square miles, roughly the same size as the city of Los Angeles, yet they only have 7 police officers for the entire region. They simply don't have the manpower to police all of the drug trafficking. But it goes beyond just a lack of manpower. Indian land is typically overseen by tribal law enforcement agencies or the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Tribal law enforcement officers are trained just like any other law enforcement official, but they're generally limited in what they can investigate and prosecute. Under tribal law, you can only imprison a person for a maximum of 3 years, no matter what the crime is. And tribal authorities also have very limited access to correctional facilities. They are often forced to rent jail space from local county jails if there's even any jail space available. Now, if it's a serious felony issue like a murder or a rape or something along those lines, those cases can be turned over to the federal authorities, namely the FBI, for investigation and or prosecution by the feds. But the reality is that the feds generally don't prosecute crimes on tribal land. The Bureau of Indian Affairs states that federal prosecutors decline over half of the cases that are referred to them by tribal agencies. So what does that mean for drug cartels? Well, if you have an area where pills sell for $100 a pop, law enforcement is undermanned, and if you do get caught, more than likely you will be prosecuted in tribal courts, and if you are, you're facing no more than 3 years in prison. By way of comparison, a normal federal prosecution for drug trafficking carries a penalty of 10 years in prison to life, 10 being the minimum, life being the maximum. If you get caught doing the exact same thing on a reservation and you get prosecuted in tribal court, you're looking at a maximum of 3 years. So there is a big difference there. So for drug cartels, it's high reward, low risk, and for Native Americans, it's devastation. So is there any hope? Well, yes, but it's going to take a joint effort between the federal authorities and the tribal leaders. And the rub, of course, is that the Native Americans generally do not want the government involvement in their affairs. They see it as an erosion of their independence and their sovereignty. So it's going to take both cooperation and respect to get this done. Is it possible? I think so. Increased awareness of this issue recently resulted in a major bust where law enforcement seized 700,000 fentanyl pills on reservation land. To put that in perspective, that's $70 million in lost profits. And the defendants? Sinaloa drug cartel operatives. And they are being prosecuted in federal courts. So it was a major win for the good guys. So there is room for hope. That is today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button for me. If you got something to say, put it in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now. I'm Joshua Roberts, attorney at law, and you've been watching Lawyer Up.